We're live.
We are going live. Yep.
Okay, here we are. Lance Luke, Martin Pea, part of Ask the Building Expert Masterclass webinar series. And thank you for attending, those of you who are on our Zoom platform, as well as those on social media. And we're restreaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I'm not sure wherever else if somebody decides to restream on their own. But the topic today is the LA wildfires. We're talking about a little bit about the breakdown of what happened, how to build and rebuild smarter. And let me go through some slides here. Um, this webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection, which is a Hawaii-based construction management and property inspection company. And we'll get through. So this topic, it may be talked about a lot or maybe too much, and people may be tired of hearing about it. Right now, the topic of the day, especially in the United States, is the government shutdown. Um, and I know that there's majority of people that are tuning in are from the United States, but there's some others that are from different countries. And believe it or not, the wildfire issue is not specific to United States. It happens basically in areas all over the world. And we're tuning in on the LA wildfires. We gave a couple webinars about the Lahaina wildfire, and now we're talking about the LA wildfire. And the LA wildfire, just for historic purposes, uh, started in January of this year. Okay, and I went up to LA twice, one time in April and one in March. And I didn't see any fire, but I saw a lot of um, devastation caused by the wildfires. And so part of part of the presentation is basically my experiences checking things out and also coming up with ideas to help people in rebuilding or just general awareness of what's going on, what may happen, and things like that. No one expected a wildfire. It's almost like um, any kind of fire. Nobody expects it, and the devastation was horrendous. And when we say LA wildfire, there were more than one. There was like two, three, or maybe more in different locations, all kind of like around the same time. Okay, so let's get into discussion here. So the background and the key timeline of events, gonna talk about that. So the fire began in the Santa Monica Mountains and spread rapidly. So day one to day two, high winds and dry brush made conditions perfect for fast fire movement. Day three and four, evacuations expanded. Emergency response was in full swing. And day five and beyond, containment slowly increased. Damage reports started rolling in. So um, it was happening in a span of a week or several weeks, and the fire just spread way too fast, and people weren't prepared, and they didn't think that their house was even in the fire zone. Okay, so that was part of the problem. Emergency response and challenges. Thousands of personnel worked around the clock, but they faced major issues. What were they? You probably heard on the news. Limited water supply especially in hillside areas. You need water to put the fire out, and they had either no water or very low water pressure. Congested roads because people were trying to evacuate, and the fire trucks and fire equipment were using the same road to get to their destination where they wanted to be. So the roads got very clogged, and then there was gaps in interagency communication. There wasn't one line of communication. There were all different departments trying to talk to each other and governmental agencies and all that. So even with planning, real-time conditions brought huge unexpected problems. There are lessons we can't ignore for future planning. So for one, it took people by surprise. For two, were the first responders and governmental agencies even fully equipped to handle this kind of thing? Did they know what to do? What was the protocol? Did they do training, fire drills, and all that? What would happen? So, um, at this point, there's a lot of reporting that came out and said, oh, they weren't prepared. This agency wasn't prepared. This agency wasn't talking to this other agency. The mayor decided not to approve additional water, and there's all these different things. The mayor wasn't even in town. All kind of issues coming up, and a lot of it stemmed from the news media reporting stuff, and whether it was true or not true, they still wanted to get on the news. So it you got to listen and try to figure out what's factual and what's not factual. But every time there's an emergency, whenever the government or the news reporters say something, people tend to believe that information, right? If the media on the news said there's a fire, evacuate, well, you're gonna want to follow what the instructions were, right? Impact on communities and infrastructure. We saw over 800 structures destroyed, homes, schools, businesses, but the damage goes beyond the physical. Now, usually on a wildfire, a lot of homes get destroyed, but when you see schools, businesses, retail centers, everything just um, burnt to the ground, I mean, it's like a sight to behold. I mean, I seen a lot of devastation, uh, but it's mainly condo buildings or single family houses, and to actually go and have boots on the ground and seen thousands of homes just not there anymore, or partly, a chimney still standing and the rest of the house is gone. I mean, it's kind of like you're in awe, like, wow, I can't believe this happened. And then the second thing is, I don't think I want to be here because it's just, it's very, very sad. It's a sad situation. So as you know, the impact is huge. There's homes burnt down, businesses burnt, schools, churches gone, families displaced, businesses displaced. There are power outages that lasted days or in some areas weeks. Smoke and poor air quality affecting vulnerable populations. In fact, when you go into a fire zone or uh, an area, let's say one house that there was a fire, you can smell the burnt items. You can just smell and taste. It's just a burnt feeling and the odor and all that. It's just something that you want to remove yourself away from because you don't want to be smelling. Even though the fire's put out long ago, there's still the remnants of it. It's almost like if you're camping and you have a nice campfire, and then you put it out. Afterwards, if you go by that area, you can still smell the burnt wood, the ash, and all that. Jane. So the entire infrastructure of Los Angeles and the cities that were involved was pushed to the edge. Some systems failed, and it showed the community what's working and what's not. So that's the infrastructure. You combine the first responders and all the agencies involved in helping with the infrastructure that got damaged and all that, and you have towns and areas that it's just a bad situation. So what are the lessons learned and the prevention strategies? And here's where we move from reaction to prevention. Okay, the damage is done already. So damage is surveyed. What do we do, right? Buildings must follow stricter fire resistance standards, and the building code is always looking at and revamping and coming up with suggestions on what to do, how to build better, how to build so that it's sustainable and you're not in the way of a fire, or if you are, at least you have a better chance of uh, protecting the building, protecting the house, and protecting the occupants and all that. There's also vegetation management, which is essential around properties and roads. And vegetation management, we're talking about um, brush, weeds, trees, any kind of landscaping or um, natural landscaping, whatever was there before. So I'll talk more about that later. Also, early warning systems need upgrading. The emergency warning, if there's a wildfire, what happens? Sirens go on. What does a siren sound like, right? Is it what is the tone? People should know the tone when there's an emergency warning. Oh, okay, that sounds like a wildfire siren, or that sounds like an earthquake siren, or whatever the situation is. So the bottom line is we cannot control nature. We cannot control how ready we are. Well, we can if we take proper steps to it. So we can control and be as ready as we can, and that's emergency preparedness, right? So even if we pass the test for emergency preparedness 100%, we cannot control the outside nature. We cannot control what would happen if lightning struck in an area where there's dry brush and started a fire. We cannot control if somehow the a pole that electricity lines are running in somehow blew down from high winds. That may be hard, but we can take steps to try to prevent that. And we absolutely can't control a wild maniac, crazy idiot that decides to start a fire for fun by himself for whatever reasoning it is. We cannot control that, right? So we just have to be prepared and do as much as we can to help the situation and improve building codes and building materials and those kind of things. So rebuilding effects, we're talking about sustainable solution. And I'm just going to briefly talk about these things. So naturally, if the house is old, you're not using fire resistant materials like metal roofs, concrete siding, um, CMU blocks, or entire walls of the house made of concrete. Um, You want to elevate key infrastructure above known hazard zones. Sometimes it's hard to do. Incorporate smart design, fire breaks, clear evacuation routes, and safe zones. And it's not just about restoring what was lost, it's about improving it. And the technology today, I've actually read a lot of reports where they're mandating today, the building code mandates, the fire code mandates fire sprinklers when you're building a new house in a lot of areas. If you're in Hawaii, the code doesn't require you to put sprinklers in a single family house. But when you think about it, that just makes sense, right? Um, I've seen um, designs where they have designed a sprinkler system not only inside the house but outside. So if there's a fire, right, all of a sudden the sprinklers go on, and now it's spraying water on your roofs and the side of the building and side of your house and all that. Well, that may be a good idea, but then I'm thinking, realistically, is it going to, if the fire is so strong, it's basically going to evaporate the water, right? Or let's take a house that's fully fire sprinklered inside the house. Now, if you have a raging wildfire and it just hits the house, everything on the outside is going to start burning, and the sprinklers will go off inside. So you may be saving a part of inside the house, but not nothing outside. Okay, so that's another cause or question that you might want to ask. The other thing is that um, if the fire is so big, the fire sprinklers may not be able to put it out in time, right? So it's just one of those things that you have to really consider and think about. So, what is the path going forward? Policy changes and future preparedness. Policymakers have a big role to play, and I know the government is supposed to be here to help, but it's also a money thing too. They might say, "Well, we don't have enough money to devote to emergency preparedness, or we don't have enough money to do this or do that." But one of the first things that I don't think you need much money is education. In a lot of areas, education is free or at a low cost, right? And you can use the news media for part of the education. So, the news media always wants to get their story. Well, they can get the story of announcing more preparedness or different kind of building material that could withstand fires, or different things to help the cause. So maybe stronger land use policies. Houses can't be built right next to each other and they have to follow the building code. Incentives for homeowners to retrofit older buildings. As you know, the older the building is, the less code compliant it is with conforming to today's building codes. And then citywide plans for high-risk zones. I mean, never in my imagination did I think that those multi-million houses in Malibu would get burnt down to the ground from a wildfire, right? So you never know what can happen or what may happen. Call to action. Let's not wait for the next wildfire to start preparing. Review your home's fire readiness, support smart policies, spread awareness in your neighborhood. We all have a role in building fire resilient communities. Now, I'm going to throw this out. No matter what area you're in, what area you live in, or even when you're on vacation and you're driving around, let's say you're on vacation, you're driving around sightseeing and you're going through areas where there's forest and trees and brush and all that. do you see a lot of green or do you see a lot of brown? And then you ask yourself, if there was a fire that started, what would happen? Right? You have acreages, miles of acres of forest, trees, dry brush, and all that. Okay, and that's flat area. Now you look on um, hills and mountains, and you have the same thing. So imagine if a fire started and it just went really fast and went up to the mountain. How are people even supposed to get up there to put the fire out? Okay. Now let's let's go back to um, Hawaii, island of Oahu. You drive around the island, and you have you drove over um, like Sandy Beach, right? Sandy Beach going to Makapu area. On both sides of the road, there's dry brush. And there've been fires over there, right? But that's not a good thing. Then you go on the west side, and there's even more dry brush and all that. And there's fires that start over there too. So anytime you have dry brush, it's easy for fires to start because that's the kindling. And every island is the same thing. You go to Maui, you see the same thing. Go to Kauai, not so much on Kauai because there's a lot of rain there and there's mostly green, but I've seen dry areas on Kauai, the Big Island. I've seen dry areas, Kona especially. Um, Saddle Road area, things like that. So you don't think that a fire could happen, but it could. Somebody could be driving and throw out a cigarette, and next thing you know, you have this huge wildfire going on. And the terminology is weird. Wildfire is actually supposed to be like a fire that started out in the wilderness from lightning or something, but it got to be like any kind of fire. But get this, and I got to thinking, like in LA, there's a Santa Ana winds, right? And you probably heard of the Santa Ana wind terminology before, but the historic data and people are monitoring the winds all the time, and the winds could go up to 100 miles an hour. Okay, and 100 miles an hour is fast. So if you have, let's say you have your house, it's 100 miles away from the starting point of the fire, and you're like, my house is like way away from the fire. I'm not even worried. But then if you look on the map and you look at it and you, oh, wait a minute. 100 miles an hour. If the flame started at the starting point of A to get to my house, which is point B, how long would it take from the fire to from point A to reach point B at 100 miles an hour, right? And the answer is 1 hour. So that's not even, that's safe, right? And I was thinking about this. So for people who really didn't understand, so let's say you're driving a truck and you have an open bed and there's hay in it, and the hay is on fire, and you drive the truck 100 miles an hour through a city, and what happens is the winds can blow the hay in your truck all over the place, right? So 100 miles an hour, if you ever drove 100 miles an hour, you know how fast that is, and that's a raging fire that could have its own weather, right? Some of these fires are so huge, it creates its own weather. It creates its own tornado and weather conditions and all that, and it's pretty scary. The more I read about and do research about these big fires, the scarier it is. And if if you weren't affected, then people, are are not as much concerned as the ones who were affected. And in Lahaina, the same thing happened, and um, we were totally not prepared at all on every count, from emergency preparedness to water and what to do and all that. So, and we're still suffering from that. So understanding the broader impact, wildfires don't just burn trees, they reshape communities. Unfortunately, they test our emergency systems and reveal weaknesses we can't afford to ignore. So from the data that we learn about what happened, now we use that to try and improve the situation. And it doesn't matter if you're in LA, Lahaina, or Colorado, or any other state that would have wildfires. So how wildfires escalate, and here's some correct, real facts. Okay. Spark ignited in Pacific Palisades, 6 major fires in 24 hours, 150,000 plus people evacuated. 10,000 plus structures lost, emergency resources overwhelmed. This is the basis, and this is factual data, and it's scary when you think about it. Santa Ana winds reach 100 miles per hour. This is a wind-driven destruction. Embers traveled miles. So can you imagine, one house is on fire, but you have 100 miles an hour's wind. Where is all the embers? And the embers are pieces of building material that's lit, it's glowing, and it's blowing all over. So it's spread out through the neighborhood, and these embers are landing on other houses, right? On the roofs of other houses. Fires actually jumped over highways, right? Aircraft grounded due to turbulence. The aircraft that wanted to drop water and fire retardant couldn't even fly because the weather, the air, it wasn't safe, too much turbulence. So they were grounded for a while, and that's not good. Also, there was a water shortage crisis, dry hydrants in key zones. There was a reservoir that was under repair, power outage, stopped pumps. Crews used pools, tankers, seawater, whatever water was available that they could get. So a lot of swimming pools, the pool water was used to put out some of the fires. So it was that kind of situation. And when you have a huge wildfire, it's burning down all your utility poles. And so all these poles are on the ground, and you know, the electricity lines were burnt too, and you have a power outage. So you have pumps that you need to pump water. The pumps weren't working because it needs electricity because of power outage. Evacuation and trauma, 101,000 people plus were forced to flee. Families got separated. Some people couldn't find their family members for days. Shelters were overcrowded. Huge mental health impact was widespread. Pets, cats, dogs, they were missing. No one could find them. Unprecedented loss, 250 to 275 billion dollars in damages. And it's probably going to be even more than that. Insurance payouts were delayed, older homes destroyed faster because it didn't have the um, more modern building materials, and then the recovery expected to take years. Now, my estimate was 10 to 20 years plus to recover, rebuild, and all that. And some areas, you're not even going to see a rebuild of a house. I heard people got fed up and they just left. They said, we're not even going back there. We're not building our house. We're selling the lot for cheap, just to we don't we don't we don't want the memories. They're just too negative. So even the celebrities, so fame doesn't protect from the fire. The fire doesn't discriminate like, oh, this is a celebrity, so we're not going to touch their house. You heard of the stories where a lot of celebrities lost their homes too. They shared their stories in national media, highlighted contrast in their recovery speed. Um, the fire affected everybody. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or you're a celebrity or not. Accountability and response gaps, officials absent or unprepared. Some officials weren't even around. They're, on vacation or wherever they were. Some that were here were unprepared. Then you find out later budget cuts reduced the readiness. Water systems failed under pressure. So there was a lot of like this shouldn't have happened kind of thing, right? And it wasn't good. Relief and resilience. There was FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, and Red Cross mobilized. There was grassroots supports. They filled the gaps that the government couldn't, or they added to it. Aid struggled to meet the scale of need. Okay, and it's sort of like back to Lahaina, the Lahaina wildfire, same thing. Let's talk about rebuilding smarter. Use fire-resistant designs, upgrade water and power systems, form fire-safe community councils, adapt to changing climate. If people do not believe of the climate change issue, then I think you're living in la la land because there's a lot of data to support that. Okay, so basically that's a wrap. What you missed, we've given so many masterclass webinars. It's on our website. I think we're like 150 or more sessions that we gave. What's coming up? We have the next masterclass webinar. We'll be talking about construction punch list closeout and the legalities. If you ever involved in construction in any way, remodeling, renovation, building a new home, or working with a contractor in any way, this is going to help you because I'm talking about what to do at the end of the job before you pay your contractor. You may ask, well, how do I get your webinars and all that good stuff you talk about? The website is askbuildingexpert.now.site, and we're constantly updating, upgrading that website. Every day we're doing something with it. So in that website, we have expert websites on different topics that you can go to: fire, life safety, contractor licensing, waterproofing, hot topics like that. Also, we have our National Building Expert blog. And if you go to any one of these resources and you can't learn anything or you don't learn anything, let us know and we'll gladly refund your money, right, Martin? We have a whole team that sends out checks for $0 and 0 cents. But we're trying to help. And then we have a whole bunch of masterclass webinars that we did on all kind of different subjects. I'm sure if you go to our website, you see one or two that you may be interested in. And then we have a bunch of books on different topics that you may be interested in reading. Monster houses, how safe is your building, cast iron drain piping, senior safety in the home. A lot of good stuff. We're about safety, buildings and construction and building safety. We also have a couple of websites that we put up, lahaina1.com. That's a rebuild Lahaina website, and then standwithlahaina.now.site. And that's just a website we put together right after the wildfire, which also could pertain to the LA wildfire as well. And then speaking of the LA wildfire, we have actually three books that I wrote. One is titled Lost in Ashes, The Events of a Burning City. And then Rebuilding Los Angeles, a practical guide to recovery after the 2025 wildfire. And then Los Angeles Fires, Part One, The Flames That Changed the City. So we have three books that are available on Amazon. And then right now we're at our Q&A. You got questions, we got answers, and Martin will be the host on that. So this time I'll want to turn it over to Martin and see if we got any questions for the audience. Now, before I do that, I want to mention that we have our Zoom platform that you're welcome to ask questions. If you're not on our Zoom platform and you're watching us or listening to us on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, um, if you want to post your question or comments on the social media platform, please do that. If we don't get to it today, we promise that we'll respond to you. And also, if you have comments or you want some subject matter discussed in future classes, let us know as well. We're open to that. So Martin, I'll turn it over to you and I'll stop share and then we can tackle any questions that come up.
Okay, Lance, thank you. A very good topic today, and one close to Hawaii with our Lahaina situation a few years back. So yeah, and we may have some questions along those lines too. But let me get to those that have come in already or earlier. The number one is, what are the biggest challenges communities faced when implementing long-term wildfire prevention strategies? You recommended some actions, and how is that working out?
It's a slow process because one of the main things is education. And so for the government or these other agencies to put the word out, it takes time, energy, and sometimes money to do that. And it's a slow process. It doesn't happen right away. Like, you have a wildfire, and then the next month, all of a sudden, there's information out there as far as what to do and all that. And then over time, people tend to forget about things and forget about education and things they learn and all that. So it got to be a constant awareness of what happened and what to do for prevention. So even after the 1 year anniversary has passed, I think the government should still be spending money on promoting and advertising emergency preparedness and what to do and all that. And I'm sure they're doing it. I don't see a huge movement in that, and it could be because of the money situation. Um, so hopefully it'll improve in the future, but I would like to see more education, even in schools. Every year, like when we were in school, there was a fire prevention week, and then you have to they give you this little booklet to fill out, and you have to draw a picture of your house, like a layout, and what happens if there's a fire, where do you go, and you have to designate a meeting place, usually out by the mailbox in your driveway. Everybody should meet there, and then have a fire drill, a practice fire drill in case there's a fire. Everybody got to know what to do. So hopefully that's still happening on the education level in schools, right? And I think it should not only be limited to um, middle school, but higher up, even high school and universities, I think should be promoting fire safety and emergency preparedness. And then outside of school, I think the government should be making, these announcements every so often to get people aware, and it's constantly in their mind. So everyone's has a mindset of what to do, and you don't have people scrambling. Oh, I don't know what to do. I never got the memo kind of thing. So um, I don't know if you watch TV. Some people don't, some people do, but there's a lot of commercials um, on these selling of drugs and all that. So I'm thinking, well, instead of like one of those commercials, you make a commercial about fire safety, how to save a life and all that, what to do in case of a fire, what to do, who to contact when you're going to rebuild your house, right? What kind of materials to use and all that. So I think that's the first thing in education. And it can go a long way because people tend to forget. If there's no reminder of what happened, people are just going to go about their busy day, and next thing you know, another fire happens and people are still in the same quandary, not knowing what to do. So I know it's easy for me to say those things, and it's harder for the government and people to accept it, or the government to actually implement it. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Good point. I mean, yeah, the media is good at exposing us to the problems and all, but we don't get good preventive messages. And that's a good point. The media could be very helpful in just kind of reminding. They kind of let us know when we've got the disaster hitting us already, but maybe it's a good idea to do things like you're recommending. Use them to provide preventive kind of activities and actions. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the nature of the news media is always reactive, right? They're just reacting to a story, right?
No, exactly.
And then after that, like if I contact media, like when there's a disaster, the media would contact me for an interview, right? And because that's the story they want to get out. But if I contact them after and say, I got a preventive solution for this. A balcony fell down, collapse in a Waikiki hotel. Oh, it's a big story. But if I contact them and I say, oh, I have the idea of what to do to prevent that. Oh, we don't want to run the story. We got more important things to talk about, right? So,
Yeah.
um, that's where the government can come in
Yeah.
and say, here's what we think should happen and all that. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. You're right. Yeah, a lot of bad news is, good news for the media, but when you do good news, you don't see too much of that stuff. Yeah. Good
Well, I
point.
have I have to I have to pay to get the good news out, right? So
Okay. Well, let me get to the next question we have that's come in, and is what specific fire resistant building materials do you recommend for homes in wildfire prone areas?
okay, there's a lot of information on that. Some by the government, some by construction industry, trades, and all that. But um, you talk about the side of your building. Okay, so you have one house, and in the past, people were using wood, plywood, and materials like that for the siding. That's wood. It can easily burn. So people started upgrading to a cement type siding material that comes in like planks or 4x8 sheets. And that's upgraded material. There's stucco type material. There's I mean, you could build your whole house out of concrete if you wanted to, or CMU block tile. So those are more fire resistant type products. And then your roof, instead of having like a wood shaker shingle roof, which is supposed to be made out of fire rated material, but if it's an older house, it's not. You switch that to concrete tile or some kind of roofing material that's not flammable, right? Fire resistant. So you just have to work with your designer and your contractor with implementing these type of building materials. And then also consider installing a fire sprinkler system, because where's your house in relation to how far the fire department personnel can get to your house, right? So if you live in a house, and even if your fire station is 1 block away, by the time the fire truck gets to your house, half your house could be gone already, right? So that's why the fire sprinklers are the first line of defense. And then also, anytime the firefighter personnel goes to a house or any structure to put out a fire, they're risking their life. So the fire sprinklers are helping save lives, not only the people who live in the house, but the people who would show up to help put the fire out. Right. So that's another big point. And I'm although I'm aware of the added costs, I'm supporting uh, fire sprinklers in a single family house, just because I've seen the reports of pros and cons and all that. The cost is far outweigh the risk. That's my opinion. So if you need more information on what kind of materials to use and all that when rebuilding, you can go to some of my websites that have the information, or contact us, and we can guide you along the way.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you mentioned there's the fire resistant things. There's always going to be I guess an added cost. Yeah, the cost of materials isn't the same as the cheaper things that you built with before. Yeah, and so I mean that's just a part of survival, is paying the price. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's a trade-off, right?
trade off. Yeah,
And then there's specific building codes anyway that uh, allow certain materials to be used, but the remember, the building code is a minimum code. It's not maximum. The code is not going to tell you um, build your whole house out of concrete, then it won't burn down, right? The code is going to allow you to build with wood still yet, but you have to be cognizant that that may not be the best material to use in case of a fire or a wildfire.
true.
So it's just a personal decisions that have to be made. It's also a financial decision for the families that are building the houses.
Yeah, you're right. It's all a risk management kind of thing to see
Right.
what you're willing to risk there. Yeah. And along the line, since you mentioned about the sprinklers, I know that's a big deal for the condos and all. But for residential, I mean, are they the water type, or can you do like the halon type, like in the in offices, in terms of types of sprinklers?
Oh, in a single family house, they're using and installing uh water for the fire sprinkler. Same way with the condos. It's all water,
Oh,
right? So in a condo, you have a separate water line, and that serves the whole condominium building. Similar to a single family house, you'd have a separate uh, water line that serves only the fire sprinkler system. So normally there's like two separate meters, a separate meter for the fire sprinkler and a separate meter for the domestic water.
oh,
Because in most cases, the fire sprinkler water is not being used. It's just in the pipes. It's not like every day you're going to turn it on. Yeah.
right, right. And I guess along those lines, there's that risk management issue of if the thing goes off and what damage the water can do to whatever's inside the home. Yeah. So again, it's those kind of issues to deal with too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there've been reports of like sprinklers in condos where the sprinkler head got so corroded that it started leaking water.
Mm,
Um, or there was one case where there was a Japanese student, a student from Japan living in Hawaii in a condo, and there was a sprinkler line with the sprinkler head, and they're hanging clothes. They're using that to hang their clothes on, and somehow the sprinkler got set off or something. Um, yeah, things like that that can happen, and now all of a sudden you got a lot of water damage.
mm,
But those are some of the risks. But for the most part, it's pretty solid. Got to be tested, connected to the fire alarm system and all that. So
right.
it's better than not having a sprinkler system. That's why insurance companies are saying we're not going to insure your condo if you don't install a sprinkler system. And then the condo board would say, so what? We're just gonna go do business with another insurance company, right? But good luck, because all these natural disasters from hurricanes and wildfires and all that throughout the country, all that cause huge claims to the insurance companies. That's why they're getting to be cherry pickers now, and there's only a handful of companies that will insure um, condos. And so basically, they can control and demand whatever they want. They can basically say, if you don't fix your railing, we're going to cancel your insurance. And it's not like you can go next door and to the XYZ insurance company and get a policy, right?
Right.
It's not that easy. So the whole condo insurance thing, it really upset a lot of condos, and the insurance thing is really bad. They're still uh, in a recovery mode, and it probably happened over a course of the next 5 years to recover from all that. I know condo buildings tapped into the reserve funds to pay for their insurance premium, and a lot of buildings can't fix their buildings because they don't have any money. They got to rebuild their reserves. So it's one of those situations that nobody knew about, and it just came up all of a sudden. It's just like all these hurricanes and wildfires. Nobody knew that their insurance companies were having to pay billions of dollars in claims, and they're in the business to make money, right? So how are they going to make money if they feel that it's too risky because that condo building doesn't have fire sprinklers? They don't want to pay another claim, so they rather just not be a part of that game and say, well, sorry, we're not going to participate. Go to a secondary carrier, off market, and then the insurance premiums are going to be even higher, right? So those are known issues in the condo world.
Yeah.
But we got
Well,
any other questions or comments?
I think I have one more, but along those lines, I'm understanding that even at the residential level, the insurance, because of the hurricanes, is now we have limited companies that's providing it even locally, and so we're gonna even the residential market is going to be facing some of that. And I was just kind of thinking about what you said about the sprinklers. If the insurance companies decided that we need to put sprinklers in single family homes, otherwise they won't insure you, you know, just like they're kind of doing with the condos, then that creates a whole other situation for the residential market, not just the condo, the single
Oh,
family type
yeah,
of.
yeah, that's a good point, but I don't think that'll happen for another 10 years or so, right? But
But then next generation gonna have to deal with it.
yeah, well, you brought up an interesting thing that reminded me of in the LA area where the homes got burnt from the wildfires, a lot of them did not have insurance.
Oh,
Why? Because prior to the wildfire, there were insurance companies that were canceling
oh
insurance
yeah,
policies.
right, right.
And so people going, oh, I'm just going to shop around, or I'm going to wait, or you know what? I have enough money, so forget insurance. If
Self-insured.
anything happens to my house, I'm going to rebuild. And if you're rich, like some of those celebrities, yeah, you can do that. But if you're not, you don't. And you imagine your house is $1 million and it got burnt down, and you have no insurance, and you don't have $1 million in the bank to rebuild. You're stuck, right? So that's part of the problem. So it's kind of not widely publicized that insurance companies are canceling insurance on a lot of homes
Yeah.
before the fire. It's almost like they knew something was up, right? So,
Or they're
and
going out of
of
business in the areas
yeah,
like they're
I
doing
mean,
here. Yeah.
of course, we got all these after Lahaina, we had all these um, strange comments about what the cause was, right? Aliens, government taking over, was a government scheme, energy sources used, and because the government wants to take the Lahaina city over and turn it into a tourist destination, or I mean, there was all these coming up, and I remember because when I put out the information, I got all that response on Facebook and all that. So I'm
And
like,
do you
okay,
wonder,
well, I mean, it could be a alien invasion, but why would they pick Lahaina? They should pick somewhere else. So,
okay, well, let me ask you the last question that I've seen come in, so you get a chance to answer that one is, uh, how can homeowners create defensible spaces around their properties to reduce wildfire risks?
oh, one of the first things is if you look around your house and you have a lot of vegetation, trees and brushes that are real close to your house, that's actually not a good situation for wildfire. So the idea is you want to plant these trees like 20 to 30 feet away from your house. So if it catches on fire, it doesn't immediately burn your house down, right? So there's spaces around your house, around the perimeter, that should not be any kind of greenery or things like that, right? Plants and all that. Of course, the idea is you want good landscaping, you want your house to look good, and you plant trees and all that close to your house. But now that we know the data from the wildfires, we're always promoting don't plant stuff, trees and bushes close to your house because it can catch on fire. Believe it or not, even if it's green, it can still catch on fire, right? Because there's bark. The bark is dry on the outside. So the tree that looks green, right? You go, it's not going to catch on fire because there's green leaves, there's water in it, but the outer bark is dry. If the outer bark still catches on fire and the wind's blowing, emergency preparedness, well, you got pieces of bark now on fire blowing all around. They're going to blow on the roof of your house and your neighbor's house. So that's part of the uh, reason why we don't want plants and bushes too close to your house. So anything else before we
Oh, that's
close?
all we got, Lance. Thank you for the updates and insight on the LA fire and maybe I don't know if you're going to be having an update on the Lahaina one, if or any comparisons, but hopefully we'll see something on that in the future.
Yeah, okay. Um, that's good. We have our masterclass webinars all set for next year already. It's up on our website, and you can register for those or pick and choose if you want to attend. If you don't have time to attend, or you think that you are going to be busy, you can still register because we have a system that will email all the people who registered, regardless of if they're participating live or not. So you get the replay and whatever assets that we have to offer for that particular master class. So don't think that you don't want to register because you don't have time to attend live. So there's an opportunity to still get the same information as if you attended. And then one thing about our replays, if you have time to watch it, that's fine. But if you don't, I got feedback from people who just listen to it. They're not watching the video, but they're listening to it like, it's a podcast or a radio thing. And that works too. So we welcome you and thank you all for attending, and hopefully we'll see you at the next master class, which will come up in probably 2 weeks or so, something like that. All right. We'll see you next time. Aloha.